Love it or hate it, Spitting Image is the show that'll have you quaking in your boots if you're in the public eye.
These please are rounder than usual.
Scenes at home with the Majors have become very popular with audiences. But did you know that it can take up to 3 people to control one puppet? One person to do the Prime Minister's body, someone else the eyes, and another person may sometimes control the arms, often in cramped conditions. At the end of the day, do you sometimes have a bad back?
Not sometimes, always, I think is fair to say. No, they're very heavy. They are very heavy, and most of them are this size, as you can see, is life size. They wear real clothes, so they're very heavy. If you can imagine holding a suit up for 2 or 3 minutes, and then putting on top of that, you've got all the rubber and the mechanics in the head to make the eyes work. It's the minimum of 2 people because you need one person to operate the head and the mouth, which is the main operator, and that person also operates the left hand. There's a second person that comes in and does the right hand, and then there's a third person who operates the eyes on the end of a cable.
The voices are recorded separately, and the puppets then mime to the soundtrack. That means performer Steve Nallon can do 2 jobs. He's worked on the show since it began 9 years ago and provides the voices for some of the most popular characters, including Roy Hattersley, the Queen Mother, Bruce Forsyth, Alan Bennett, and Margaret Thatcher.
Both Michael Foot and Jim Callaghan. Well, I may have disagreed with them, but they had one thing I could admire. They were losers.
Oh, goodness me, Mr. Dawson. I love your wife, Anne. I think she's marvellous. I think it's very, very important that Mr. Major is doing the wrong sort of campaigning, standing on cardboard boxes. That may be somebody's home.
What's your favourite character?
Well, my favourite character at the moment is Rossiter, because he's new. I mean, he's been going along a while, but I mean, he's new to the programme. And yes, I'll be doing the puppet as well. I'll be doing a bit of both, I think.
It takes up to 80 technicians to keep the show running smoothly. Whilst the crew's recording one scene, often several times, other technicians are preparing sets and puppets for later takes. Here they're recording a scene with Labour's Roy Hattersley and the Conservatives' Chris Patten, both fighting to win public support. Jonathan Green looks after the puppets and is always armed with the right tools to make them look their best.
They're fairly robust. Obviously, the puppeteers can damage them more than anybody, but that's sort of par for the course. But they generally last quite well. It's when they start getting wet and liquid and things over them that we run into trouble. Basically, it starts off as a drawing, a 2-dimensional caricature, which is then transferred into clay, a 3-dimensional clay. From that, it's a mould is taken, a fiberglass mould, which is then injected with foam. Then that goes to fitting up, where all the eye mechanisms and blinks and things like that are put in. And then it goes to the paint room and finally downstairs to wigs, and then the body's put on it.
Here you are, Reg. Got another one for you.
Hard luck, Mr. Steele. The show is often considered controversial because it doesn't pull any punches when poking fun at senior public figures. No one gets off lightly. Texan puppeteer and voice artist Anthony Asbury brought a new dimension to the way we see the Pope by making him an American.
You gotta have some of that Jack Daniels, man. Oh, ooh, bless you too. Get out of here. Ow!
Satire's always been cruel. In the 1700s and 1800s, writers like Jonathan Swift railed against the so-called bastions of his society.
In like manner, there ought to be no restraint at all on thinking freely upon any proposition, however impious or absurd. There is not the least hurt in the wickedest thoughts, provided they be
Today,
free.
the idea behind Spitting Image is much the same, but they do say they do their very best to make sure it's equally cruel to all parties.
I think the public perceives Spitting Image as being a bit left-wing, but that's only because the Tory government have been in a long time, and we tend to knock people in power. There's not really very much point in knocking a party without power, so we've tended to knock the government more, which has given us a reputation for being left-wing. In fact, I think we're fairly balanced in any case.
Look, it's neither what Labour say nor what the Conservatives say, but somewhere in between.
Spitting Image has earned its place in the history of satire, and it seems as long as there's someone to poke fun at, it'll go on and on.
Has all the savage edge of Not the 9 O'Clock News and all the enormous puppeteering skills of the Muppets, doesn't it, Your Majesty?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's talk about the savage edge first, because you are, or are you? You're going very near the borderline.
Well, I always think that television's strange because there are things that you're supposed not to do on television that people do in the pub or in their own homes every day, and that's all we're trying to do, is just do ordinary things to make ordinary people laugh, really. And it's not there to offend or to outrage, it's there to be funny. That's the main thing.
And you're trying to make it topical. In fact, you're shooting
That's right.
a lot of this just before it goes out on Sunday night.
Yes, we're on the air now. We're actually going to shoot the same day, some of the material, the same day as it goes out, so it'll be even more topical than the Sunday newspapers in places. It's exciting, isn't it?
Let's talk about the puppets themselves. They
Right.
are quite incredible, aren't they?
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And development-
These are not puppets, of course. These are the real thing. But,
Talk about their development. It is a development from the Muppets.
well, unfortunately, the Muppets wouldn't tell us how they did it, so it's not a development from the Muppets. We had to do it all ourselves, and Roger Law and Peter Fluck really had to do it all from first principles to find out how to make the foam from which they're made, and all the inside things. In fact, there are lots of things that we've developed, I think the Muppets don't do, which are much simpler and much cheaper than the way the Muppets did.
At last, an alternative to what some TV viewers feel is the crushing boredom of this campaign, the latex election. Spitting images striking back on behalf of everyone suffering from an overdose of the polls. As soon as the ballot boxes are locked on June the 11th, Spitting Image will be back with a special election programme. It's designed to poke as much wicked fun as possible at the expense of the party leaders. But the programme makers are scrupulously fair. They're nasty to everyone.
Basically, we're not being biased. We've still we're hitting all the parties. I mean, we're showing Norman Tebbit campaigning in a tank, but we're also showing Owen and Steele campaigning on a bicycle, and we've got Hattersley and Kinnock campaigning together, and Hattersley spraying the crowd through his megaphone. So we're still being sort of even-handed.
What do you think of the campaign so far?
I think it's building up to be monumentally dull. I think by the time the polls close at 10 o'clock, most people will be ready to make fun of it.
Hello, lovely little boy. Hello, everybody. Will you vote for me on June the 11th?
So it was quite a day for the folk of West Bromwich, who had the chance to weigh up a galaxy of plastic politicians. And their verdict? They're all a bunch of dummies.